How did that go at middle school? You let your sideburns go down a little bit. They won't grow. You're on camera. Well, this is
Harold Feil. I think all of you know Harold well enough to know of his service to the Rofan Club as its president in one of the years in the early 60s, and I remind those of you who were not members at that time and who have the yearbooks to read the presidential address of Harold Feil, which was a biographical sketch of Dr. Ackley, who owned this house in the middle 19th century, and much of his address, too, of course, gives you some of the history of the house, and I think every member of Rofan should be acquainted with that particular document. Dr. Feil told me, and I hadn't realized this, his medical degree is from Ohio Wesleyan. It says Ohio Wesleyan on it, but he was a student at Ohio Wesleyan Medical School at the time it became a part of Western Reserve Medical School. He attended actually both schools, but his diploma does say Ohio Wesleyan. Dr. Feil, of course, as all of you know, has been a distinguished physician in the community of Cleveland all of his life, and we are proud, and of course, to include him as part of our Friday lunch group, and we welcome him back today to speak on Stephen Laycock. Dr. Feil.
Days, I was introduced to the humorous and hilarious writings of Stephen Leacock, of which there were many. The books were really collections of his stories, long or short, published previously in current magazines. When I decided to write a brief resume of his life, his careers, and his personality, I decided to make an informal survey of his current degree of popularity.
I was born in Bay Shore, Long Island, June 26, 1889. There I am, a few years later, with my brother Stanley. Time marches on. We had a dog named Rex. Dressed elegantly. Dressed for play. I was engaged to Nellie Elgutter. I am with Nellie, her cousin Anna, and my brother Stanley. My research writing started in 1915. Then on July 29th, 1915, it happened. Nellie and I were married. My writing continued. World War I, and I entered the Army Medical Service. I continued my writing in Camp Dix, New Jersey, still in the Army. In 1920, Nellie and I went to England, where I studied electrocardiography with Sir Thomas Lewis. And in 1920, George Feil was born in England. Back in the USA, more writing and Mary Feil was born. George and Mary. Then in 1924, more writing and more babies. Edward and his mother. We built an English Tudor house in 1924, inspired by our visit to England. I copied the fireplace in the old George Inn in Salisbury. I carefully measured it. On a winter day, Niagara Falls. The children in the living room. I continued my research. Visiting in New York City. Less scientific work. Then World War II. Reading electrocardiograms.
Okay.
This is my consulting room.
Wait a second.
Scene one, take
Maybe
one.
you're pointed the wrong way.
Scene one, take one, Dr. Feil.
This is my office where I interview patients previous to the examination. And on the walls are pictures of the foxglove digitalis, most of which came from herbals going back several hundred years. One picture is a photograph of digitalis from my garden, taken by Mr. Edward Feil. And also this one over here is Digitalis purpurea, the purple foxglove, also from my garden. And another picture here, also from my garden. This is Digitalis lanata, L-A-N-A-T-A. Both of these types of digitalis are used for certain types of heart disease. And this is the oldest one and goes back to the 16th century, perhaps the first herbal by Fuchsius, F-U-C-H-I-U-S. And here we have a piece of pipe removed by a plumber from my house.
Wait a second. Okay.
Scene one, take.
No. Roll two.
Take one.
This is a piece of pipe from my home removed by a plumber replacing it with a copper pipe. And this shows very much the same changes that occur in coronary arteries, the seat of disease, angina pectoris and myocardial infarction, and shows the deposit of calcium, and in the human heart it would be cholesterol. And the water can't flow through this pipe readily and normally, and blood cannot flow through the arteriosclerotic human coronary artery, interfering with the nutrition of the heart muscle.
I'm going to ask another question.
Would you tell us about the heart that's there?
Oh, yes.
And the beef heart?
This is a plastic heart used for illustrating the anatomy of the human heart. Human heart is just about that same size. And this is a injection of a human heart. The red, the arteries, and yellow, the veins.
And that came from a slaughterhouse?
No, this did not come from a slaughterhouse.
Well, that's a human heart.
No, this is a human heart. See, it says human heart.
Can you tell us how you went to the slaughterhouses, how you came to...
Well, I did that when I was studying the nervous system of the heart. And I would get specimens of beef heart and then inject the nervous system of the beef heart, showing the electrical spread preceding the contraction of the heart muscle.
Never thought of the heart as having a nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that causes the beat, the heartbeat.
Cut. Rolling sound. Roll 2, roll 2, take 3. Okay, would you please type?
Can you read my writing?
Oh, yes, no problem at all.
No problem at all. Well, that's fine.
Pardon me?
Great. Okay. You're writing something over there. Okay, now go.
You want Mrs. Tratch to come in now?
Yeah.
Come right in.
Scene 4.
Have you taken a master test?
Yes, I will, Dr. Feil.
Fine.
Also found out who first...
Start roll 1.
Who first used digitalis as a medicine? Tell me. Tell me.
Withering.
Withering.
Yes,
But he,
William Withering.
I know, but he, come on, walk over this way, got the idea from an old What was she?
Well, she was an elderly woman who had a cure for the dropsy.
That was it.
And the drug was from Digitalis purpurea.
Not this type.
Purple. Now this is the Digitalis ambigua, called ambigua because it is uncertain as to whether or not it is related to the Digitalis purpurea or the Digitalis lanata, because this plant has the leaves of the lanata and the flowers of the purpurea.
But it's
Therefore, it is called Digitalis ambigua.
But the flowers are a different color.
And the flowers are a pale yellow, whereas the flowers of purpurea are lavender, pink, red, and some white. The Digitalis lanata, the flowers, are similar in color, a pale yellow of the ambigua.
Are the leaves as useful as the other type of leaf?
I don't know. I think that remains to be determined, and I hope someday to establish whether or not the ambigua is as valuable as the purpurea or the lanata.
Now, do you think that's true? I have nothing more to say.
I think that's about all I have to say.
That's a good test, isn't it? It blooms in the spring, tra-la.
Yes, in June and July.
And doesn't flourish in cold weather.
And also, the ambigua is a perennial, whereas the lanata and the purpurea are biennials.
Enough. Well, that's it. We've done our stuff. Do we get paid?
Through my husband. How long have you known him? For more than 50 years.
What's the best thing
That's a long time, isn't it? His intelligence, his helpfulness, his sincerity, and being a good guy. Now, isn't Harold the last person you'd call a guy?
No, I think it's a compliment. The person you call a guy.
A guy.
It's okay.
But he's a good guy.
You bet he is.
I think he's a debonair young man. How long did you live?
To have friends at the age of 90, you'd think that perhaps they would have found you out.
It's subtle.
Everybody's so quiet.
We're listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we go down the table and everybody say something?
They're asking for a question.
Huh?